Well, first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Aaron Master. I'm the pastor starting Centerpoint Church. So thanks for coming to check out our preview service. The whole point of a preview service is to help us figure out some of the kinks and the issues. So thanks for being a part of our issues, as you got lines, you got all kinds of weird things happening. But thanks for being the guinea pigs for us of helping us figure out how to do services. But honestly, our goal is to provide a really great service and community feel for all who attend and those who are a part of that. And this is our first step to getting to that. So thanks for being the people that are willing to take those mistakes for us. Yet I want you to know, all of what you're seeing here out in the foyer is all done by volunteers. All different people who are passionate about starting a church here in Fond du Lac. The worship, the kids, the setup, the lights, the moving of stuff. Oh my gosh, there's so much of moving of stuff when it comes to church planning. But yes, these people have done a ton of work to make this happen. And tons of people have helped. So let's just give everyone who's been involved in making this service happen a round of applause. It's been amazing to see our team, which the people who are part of the team, part of the church, right? The people who are here are part of the church. It's awesome to see them grow. So we want to continue to do that. So if you want to be a part of this amazing team, you can fill out one of those cards that's in front of the seats there. There's a pen, there's a card, fill that out. And let's grab coffee. I'd love to talk to you about specifically being a part of the team. And you can turn that in at the end of the service. Now, I'm not going to lie. Checking out church, especially a new church that has never had a service, can be scary and super awkward. Super awkward. And that's coming from a pastor who likes church, but it's awkward for me. So I want to be upfront with you for what you can expect or know what you're getting into for these next few minutes. First off, relax. During our 1 hour service, we won't make you say or do anything weird other than maybe wear one of these colored stickers. But hopefully that wasn't too bad for you and that was optional. And then in addition to that, I want you to know that we're a laid-back church whose mission is to help you take the next step in developing your relationship with God. So whether that means just popping in the building and taking off right away, we're okay with that. Maybe that means helping you start a relationship with Jesus. That's awesome too. Or challenging you in your faith and in your walk with God. That's what we're all about. So no matter who you are or where you are at in your walk, you're welcome here. You're welcome here, and we're a place that anybody can come and be loved. Secondly, what you can expect is we have a goal to create a positive, life-giving atmosphere. We do that through talking about the good news that comes with following Jesus, and also creating a fun community feel with coffee and treats. So grab some of that after the service, because we want to create a fun atmosphere that you want to be a part of and be at. And then finally, know that we have a goal to have our teaching be relevant, to be applicable to your everyday life. We take God and the Bible very seriously, but we have a hope to make it understandable for all who are listening. Because, let's be honest, sometimes the Bible is hard to understand. So we want to bring it in everyday language, in your context, and let you be able to understand it really, really well. So hopefully this gives you some ease to maybe your mind about being here today, but that's what you can expect. If you happen to see our online preview service last week on Facebook or on our YouTube page, you know that we started this 2-week series called Not Afraid. There's a lot of fear in the world right now, right? Just talking with different people and hearing their fears. The virus, the economy, protests, recalls, future changes, your family safety, and just opposition. And then, on top of all of that, the normal fears that we deal with every day, right? Sickness, loss, random events, and uncertainty. There are fearful things in this world. Psalm 27:1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, so why should I be afraid?" It's saying we shouldn't be afraid when we're connected to God. But I'm fairly certain those that follow God, along with those that don't, we fear. We fear. So last week we talked about tactics to defeat fear. And God gives us some tactics to do that. But sometimes it's hard, right? It's hard, and we just can't shake our fears. Sometimes you're just afraid, whether you're a Christian or not. You're afraid. We're afraid. Maybe you're a macho man or a macho woman. Is that appropriate to say? But maybe you're someone out there that's like, I'm not afraid of anything. Let me throw some different words out there to you that mean essentially the same thing, because I've said these before. I've dropped these. I'm nervous, I'm apprehensive, I'm tense, I'm stressed. Or what I like to say to my wife, I'm just thinking. But to be honest, most of those situations, when I use those words, are fearful situations. Fear is very real. Sickness, disease, death, loss, change, lack of control, uncertainty. For me lately, uncertainty and lack of control have been scaring me a ton lately, personally. My wife Cindy and I, we had our first child about 2 months ago. Eliza is her name. Here's a little picture of her. You can cue the yaws. Alright, cue the yaws. Awesome. Side note, I never knew how much women like holding babies. I thought like 5 minutes, like everybody wants to hold a baby for 5 minutes, but hours. I'm learning this, so that's been really interesting. Anyways, having a child and the delivery of her was scary. And I'm the man in the process, right? But there was this moment when this was happening, the moment Eliza was delivered, and where she was crying and the nurses wanted me to help her. But at the same time, my wife Cindy, she was losing blood. Her blood pressure was going down, and she was pale in the face, and the beeping was going off like crazy. You know, like in all the scenes that you've seen on TV, beeping's happening all over the place. And I was in this moment of complete fear. I felt so torn and scared of what to do in that situation, and just fearful of the situation. And I felt that the fear could go easily 2 different ways. The first one would be relief, that things are okay, or as I keep hearing people say lately, the on the up and up, which, spoiler alert, they're okay, everybody's fine. Or another thing that happens, complete frustration and even anger if something happened to one of my girls in that situation. Have you been there before? Where you felt your fear could go 2 different ways. It could be poorly or in a bad way, or it could go of complete relief. Whether that fear was with, again, news, sickness, loss, changes, uncertainty. I think we all fear. We all have fear. We all have experienced something like this or know someone who has. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Bible, a story in the Bible specifically, and talk about how no matter which of these 2 you deal with, relief or something poorly happening, in our fearful situation, we can still find joy. We can still find purpose, and we can still find hope, which should make us not afraid. So the story we're going to look at is in Exodus. And Exodus is a book of the Bible, and there's this guy named Moses. And Moses, he kind of has this interesting past. So Moses is this guy who is Hebrew, meaning he's of God's people. And he was lucky enough to be able to be rescued by the Egyptians at that time, because they were killing Hebrew babies, and for some reason he was rescued by an Egyptian family, which happened to be like the king's family. Well, at that same time, the Hebrews were enslaved by the Egyptians. So, crazy past, right? Well, Moses, as he's getting older, he starts to see how these Egyptians are treating the Hebrews, and he's getting frustrated. He's getting upset, and he actually kills a man in response to how they're treating the Hebrews. And he kills a man, but he's ashamed, and he takes off, and he goes to this distant land. He starts his own life, his new life. Now, I would say it's pretty peaceful, until one day, he sees on top of a mountain a burning bush. Now, how crazy can that be? But a burning bush without it being consumed is what the scriptures say. His response is, "This is amazing." That's what you're reading about. This is amazing. And I'm picturing his response is even more intense than what I just said. It's probably something more like this. Check it out.
A rainbow. Oh my God. It's a double rainbow all the way. Whoa, it's so intense. Whoa, man. Wow.
calling to him. It says, Moses, Moses. Honestly, in my head, I pictured God could have dropped like an LCD TV with a burning bush on it, and you would have been like, whoa, like that's insane. You know, it would have been out of this world to him. But what happens is God speaks to him through this bush, and it says in Exodus 3, 5-6, it says, do not come any closer. The Lord warned, take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. Now there's a few important things to this part of the story. The first is he hears, take off your keys or sandals. You're on holy ground, God is saying. What God is saying in that moment is, I am holy and you need to respect that. I am holy and you need to respect that. And then Moses, I'm assuming he takes his sandals off and he covers himself because he's afraid of what he's seeing. He's like, wow, I am in a holy place. He had fear of God and his power. And I'm sure thinking, this could go of two different ways. This could go amazing, I have this connection with God, or I'm in it for something. Now, the story continues. It goes in Exodus 3:7. God continues to speak to him. In 3:7 it says, then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I'm aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It's a land flowing of milk and honey. I don't know if that sounds intriguing to you. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. Moses' response to this is like, yo, God, I don't know if you noticed, but like, I'm not really a part of that life anymore. I'm at this distant land. I'm not really connected to those people anymore. And then he says, I don't know if you've like listened to me lately, but I'm not super great at talking either. If you read it more in the chapters, it says like Moses is nervous about even approaching the Pharaoh. Well, God says in the further chapters, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of it, and I'll take care of everything you need. And then what happens is Moses goes. He goes and does it. He does what God asks, and he rallies his people. He goes to the Pharaoh and runs into problem after problem after problem until his people are released. Heated conversation after heated conversation. Scary conversations I'm picturing. But finally, the Pharaoh, the king of that time, releases God's people to Moses. And then Moses leads these people, thousands of them, through a sea, through conflict, and gets them close to the land flowing of milk and honey, or a land that's just very fertile. Now, there's obviously a lot of details that I'm not sharing with you right now that are missing in this story. We have a few Bibles like at our Welcome Center that you can grab and take that so you can continue reading this story, because it's good. You got to get these details. But they're free. Grab one on your way out if you don't have one. But in this story, we see that Moses, he has intense fear about what he encounters with God. He feels inadequate about handling the situation, but then is used for a purpose and turns into this leader leading people through tough stuff. He turns into this fearful person who's covering his face from God to one of the big shots of the Bible. In this story, there are so many things we can learn from Moses' situation to not be afraid personally. The first one that I think we need to point out is fear brings wisdom. Fear brings wisdom. In Proverbs 9:10 it says, fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One results in good judgment. Moses, he was afraid when what he encountered on that mountain, what God wanted him to do, how God showed up to him in the situation he was placed in. But it says, Moses is fearful and of God, seeing his face, and is on holy ground and takes his sandals off, right? But when he takes his sandals off, he's acknowledging this situation. The situation is out of my control. The situation is out of my control and it's scary. There is something bigger here than me. which makes me respect God, or makes him respect God and his need for him. In your fearful situations, have you acknowledged God? Now, side note, God isn't to blame for all of your fearful interactions or situations, but when something gets out of your control, will you acknowledge your need for God? It's honestly a hard one for me, even as a pastor. Recently, I've been dealing with this a lot in life. A few months ago, my wife and I moved, and we had a tree come down. And I'm like, last thing I want to do is cut up a tree, chainsaw this tree. This is going to take forever. It's a giant oak. This is frustrating. I don't have time for this. I'm just angry, And then all of a sudden, we have a fire in our house. This is frustrating. I don't have time for this. I don't want to deal with this. And then all of a sudden, another tree comes down and rips out our electrical. I don't have time for this. I'm frustrated. And I get to a point where, God, I need you. I'm afraid of what's going on in my world right now. I need you. I don't think God made these things happen, but like Moses, I've had a moment of acknowledging, God, I'm afraid. I'm afraid right now. But God, this is out of my control and I need you. Work through me and through the situation is what I've been saying to him. I'm acknowledging my need for God. In your fearful situation, have you done that? Have you done that? When you find out the bad news of a work situation, have you acknowledged that you want God to help? When you get that bad health report, do you acknowledge that this is out of your control and you want God to be in the situation? When you get stressed, do you acknowledge your need for God to get through that situation? With Moses' fear, he could have shrugged it off as, I'm tripping, I don't want to see like this as God, I'm hearing things, and then just moved on. But he allowed God to speak to him and to lead the situation, his fearful moment. His fear of the situation and an acknowledgement of God, of his lack of control, brought him respect from God's guidance and wisdom. So that's our first thing. Fear brings understanding and wisdom. The next thing we can see in our fearful situations, when we give them to God, whether they're good things that we're dealing with or bad things, is you instantly gain purpose. You instantly gain purpose. So the second thing we can gain from our story is you can have a purpose to be used with your fearful situation. God will use your past, your mistakes, your flaws, your strengths, and your current situation if you let him. For example, maybe you've hurt others before, but you're on this redemptive path. God can still use you. Maybe you've been hurt or beaten before, but you give that situation to God. God can still use that. You have experience with certain things. God can use that. You've made mistakes. God can use that. You've experienced loss. God can use that. You are losing your life right now. God can still use that. In our fearful situations, if we give them to God, he uses our past, present, and future to do something meaningful. He gives us purpose, and he gives our struggle purpose. In Romans 8:28 it says this, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purposes for them. That means God can make all things good for purpose. I don't know about you, but to me that's good news. That's good news to me, to hear that my pains, my struggles, my fearful situations, they can be meaningful for something. I don't know another situation that allows for that to happen. Your pain, your struggle, your fears to be purposeful. For those Bible scholars out there that are really into this story or have heard this story a ton of times, one interesting part to Moses' story is God used Moses to get his people to the land of milk and honey, right? This fertile, amazing land. Well, Moses started the process to get God's people there, but Moses never personally got there. He never actually got there. He died before it happened. He was part of the process, but he didn't complete it. Without Moses, God's people, they maybe don't get there in the time that God wants. But because of Moses, he was able to be one person in the process to get people there, to advance God's purpose. I want you to think, in your situation, are you a part of the process? Can you find purpose in getting people partially there? What is that for you in your fear? Again, God uses our situations for purpose if we want Him to. The next thing we see in our story, in Moses' story, that applies to us when we're in a fearful situation and we give it to God, is you may not get what you want, but you will be changed. You may not get what you want, but you will be changed. Moses, he gave excuses to God, right? In our story we see, he says, I'm a nobody, I don't speak well, I'm not a part of that life anymore. He probably didn't want to change. I've personally been there many times. One that comes to mind is I told you, we just recently became parents, right? That took some convincing from my wife. I wasn't jacked about being a parent right away, because I was loving going out to dinner whenever we wanted, going to the breweries, going biking, do the next do-it-yourself project. By the way, did you know that projects take forever when you have children? Yeah. It took some convincing. Now, I love being a parent, but I thought it took some convincing to me. I was giving excuses to do that. That was a change. Becoming a parent, that sounded like a lot of work and a lot of lack of sleep. I think Moses had some similar thoughts. Moses went from one who left his upbringing to living this quaint life. Sheep, family business is what his life was, a distant land. I'm imagining just like him chilling. Like if I would apply that to our Wisconsin like dream life, or rural Wisconsin dream life, it's like a cute hugging family. Can you picture that? White picket fence and like an endless supply of Busch Light or something like that. I don't know. That's maybe like Wisconsin's like dream. But anyways, it might not have been quite that nice for Moses. But Moses, he decided to make a change. He decided to make a change. And that change was significant. Just like having a baby was for me. Sometimes in our fearful situations, we don't have the ability to make that, or to choose change. It just happens to us, right? But in Moses' situation, we can see that if you embrace change, whether it's one you choose to or not, it can be used. It can be used. Moses turned into this leader who approached kings. He led thousands. He was parting the Red Sea. He's making decisions. And it started with this moment when he was afraid and doubted his ability. His life changed when he followed through with God's direction, and positively for the better. After his fearful moment with God, I'm sure he walked down the mountain like, why did I say yes to this? I do not want to change. This is horrible. This is going to be the worst thing ever. And kicking himself like, why me? Why now? I don't want to change. Have you said that before about something that you're dealing with? About some gut feeling maybe you have inside that you just know it's from God. Some feelings that you just know you need to do or act on. But Moses kept going. He kept going with God's prompting, and his life changed. Have you done that? Have you accepted the change from your fearful situation, or accepted the change and difference you can make in the position you've been placed in? Will you allow God to change you over the course of your time? Maybe it's changing you into a person that addresses gossip in your workplace or conflict. Maybe it's changing you into a person who sacrifices to do some of the crummy work but finding joy in it. Maybe it's changing you into a leader even when that's the last thing you want to be. Maybe it's saying yes to still following God even when you're dealing with a hardship. Moses' life changed when he said yes. And that yes wasn't just verbal, it was physically following through with his prompting in response to his fear. The last thing we can see in our story is when you do all of these things that we've talked about, you then are now on a journey of becoming fearless. Fearless. You will become fearless. Moses, again, he was changed and did so many things as a changed person. But his mindset changed. Sure, he probably was afraid of if someone jumped out at you, you'd be afraid. But his mindset changed. He wasn't afraid of weird situations that came up to him. He experienced normal fear, But he saw how God worked through him and through each of his situations and was always ready for the next, being not afraid. I'm sure the next things he did weren't easy. Like, these are some of the things Moses did. He civilized thousands. He fed thousands, provided water for thousands in a desert, and he split a sea. I mean, those are huge things. Moses was fearless, and being with God should make us fearless. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to not be afraid? To be fearless, both now in your circumstance and in your future. Well, God offers that for us. God offers that for us personally. He says we can have that connection with him just like Moses had. Instead of a burning bush moment, you probably will have something even more fearful than that. And an opportunity to give that to God, to give your situation to God. If that experience that you have, that fearful moment, your decision to give it to God and respect God in that fearful moment will bring you wisdom, purpose, positive change, and a future of fearlessness. If you want those things, the Bible says we can have that. We can have that with the start of a relationship with Jesus. Jesus is the center of the Christian faith, and he's the person who allows us today to be connected with God. To start that connection, if you haven't ever done that before, you can just say in your head and your heart, God, I need you. I see you as holy and I'm not. I need you in this. And as you do that, you can then be led by God. You are on the course of saying in your head and in your heart that God, I want you to guide me in my life. So as I'm wrapping up, I want to give you an opportunity to do that in a minute if you've never done that. But maybe you aren't ready for that. Maybe you're not ready for that, which is totally okay. I think it's good that you're just showing up and hearing about this. But then I know there's some people here. There's some people here who have that connection with God already. But they need encouragement to follow through with their burning bush experiences. To be fearless, right? So if that's you, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to acknowledge God knows more than you and what you think of your current circumstance. Acknowledge your need for Him. I want to encourage you to allow God to give you purpose in your fearful moments. And I want to encourage you to find purpose in something like Moses did. And finding purpose in maybe not completing something, but getting people partially there. Finding purpose in that. And then finally, to become fearless. Knowing whatever happens that God's with you so that you can be fearless in your situations. I'm going to close this in a prayer. And if you want some of those things, would you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for everyone that's here today. This has been a fun preview service for us just to figure things out. But God, as we talk about being not afraid, we've seen that when we have a connection with you, we can be fearless. We can have purpose. We can be changed and do some amazing things for you. And God, some of us, we want to accept that for the first time of saying, we want you to give us purpose. We want you to guide our lives. So we pray that you help us do that. And we pray that you allow us to have a connection with you. We want to be connected to you, so help us with that. And then God, some of us here, we have this connection with you, but God, we want to be fearless when it comes to our circumstances. God, we just pray that whatever it is that we're dealing with, that we can give that to you and find purpose, be changed by you, and be fearless as we go forward and approach that situation. God, we pray this in your name. Amen.